So next question. Next question for you guys. So, and as I'm putting quote unquote Christians, since that's our faith, the question is, are we telling ourselves the truth about the role of sex in marriage as Christians? As in, I don't put words in my like overemphasize, underemphasize, different school of thought. Don't talk about it, talk about it, don't teach, don't.
I feel like this is such a sensitive subject. I also think that it's very subjective, because we've seen marriages break as a result of, sex or the lack thereof. So I think that, I don't know that we're telling ourselves the truth. I don't think so. I don't think so. Not that we don't talk about it enough, but I think the substance of what is being talked about is misplaced. That the emphasis is placed on, I don't know, because I feel like once you get in the marriage, it's a different ballgame. Like I went through premarital class, and none of the things that they said in premarital class resonate in real life in the thing, when I eventually got married. So, and again, I wonder how transparent, religious leaders or folks can actually be about this subject before marriage. Because, some people, I don't know, I guess maybe the rationale for not being as explicit is, because you don't want to, give ideas. Because I don't know what the rationale is, but I don't think that within the community of faith, maybe now in like 2022, people are having conversations. But I don't know that when we talk about sex within the context of religion or faith or in the church, we're hitting the nail on the head, or we're presenting or packaging the information in a way that reflects the reality of what you might experience when you get into the institution of marriage.
I want to piggyback on that to say that, like you said, very subjective. I like that, right? And honestly, in terms of seasons too, right? That whole thing, I don't think anybody talks about it. And one thing about humans is this concept of what you call hedonistic adaptation, where you just get used to things. You see what I'm saying? Like if you are not very careful, you just get used to things, which is why you have to make the effort. You see what I'm saying? So as an example for us, we didn't have any issues when the babies came because my parents were around, right? I always give that testimony. Like we had them for 14 months. All you needed to do was to just, lock the door and do your thing, right? That kind of thing. So there was no question of when the children came, the you know what I mean, the regularity of sex ceased or didn't cease. But I know that's not the case for some other people. And so in that case, right, what are some things that you could have told people to say, expect this, don't expect this, you understand? In our case, we kind of I had gone ahead to say, when these babies come, it can change things. So we have to be more intentional, right? Because if you're not, then like you're saying, this can happen. Thankfully for both of you, you're able to get back into the rhythm so quickly. But imagine for somebody who doesn't have that support, 1 year turns to 2, turns to 3, and that's how you get into like, a sexless marriage, as it were. And like, that's just not going to work wonders for intimacy, right, in that sense. So
right. I want to share, back when I was younger, before I got married, we had like a ministry, and like a ministry for young women to come together and talk about, marriage and sex and the future and whatnot. And I don't remember ever hearing or learning anything about the impact of having a child. None of that. It was always about like the first few months of marriage, and maybe that was the scope of the curriculum.
I know.
Like the first few months of marriage, I remember back then, like my own thing was, and again, I say subjective because there are people that are like, sexually active before marriage, and like when they get to marriage, it's a different, their needs and like where their head is at is completely different. Right? For me, it was about like the size and like, is it gonna, like, what is it gonna be like? There was a lot of like, it was like, very mysterious. You know what I mean? when I got in, I wasn't even worrying about all of that, but like, I don't know, and that's why I'm like, mm-mm. I don't know, and I don't know that we can adequately prepare people before marriage for what to expect. Because even if right now I tell somebody who's about to get married, listen, your marriage will have different seasons and may impact sex, this, that, and the third, they will never get it until they're in it. Like, this is something my husband and I talked about, and every time we look at each other and we feel like we've been scammed into like parenthood and like marriage, because this is nothing like the social media, like the way you all talk about it and whatnot. But then we tell ourselves, imagine like if somebody had told us this is what it would look like, it would
not, you wouldn't,
It's one of those things where I think the value could be in helping people gain mental strength and resilience.
Resilience, I love it.
Will keep you through those seasons, regardless of what, because different things might hit you. But there's something about being like sound up here to be able to navigate and see and not out and not get crazy and still be centered and balanced. It's that, but it's kind of like what I'll offer.
I actually think that even though it's like your kids, you say things to them and they are safe, they might not remember consciously, but there might be a subconscious thing that kind of kicks in. Ethically, this is wrong. I think as Christian, we've actually failed the younger couple, because if the church, that is, I don't want to be critical, but if they don't hear it from one source, there's a media out there that is going to give falsehoods. That you have no, and you know how it is in advertising. The first person that advertises the product, that's it.
Yeah.
We still are searching this thing. We still use the word Google because Google is like the first. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But there's no. I see what I'm saying. Like it's a challenge to imagine what's the scope of the curriculum. How much is too much? Especially since each person's union is different. I feel like a little bit of this thing. We're not going to be able to go into all of this, but here is a chip of the iceberg that help.
So let me see, because the thing is like right here. One of the things that I also worry about is that, at least I'm noticing in my social network, is that a lot of young people are now even afraid to go in. So how present a balanced information? I don't know the answer to that question, because now when you share these things with like, the younger generations and like even like my friends who are not married, like when I talk about how stressed I am, this, that, and the third, like the response is they don't even know whether they want to get married, especially for the fact that we live in a world where you can have a living lover. You can be like buddies, helping each other's ministry. You don't have to make those commitments. So people are like, why do I need to get married when I can get everything else that comes with it without that commitment? So there is that piece as well. So like, how do we present information in a balanced way that doesn't scare people away from the marriage institution, but also psychologically prepare them for the different seasons of marriage?
Sex, right? I think as Christian community, right? I think we need to be creative in how we present it, right? Because when you find out to talk about media, right? I feel like we have our own media as Christians in terms of sex. Because, for example, if you look at one of the books of the Bible, the Songs of Solomon, right? There were like details in those books that were very, very vivid, right? So I think having that, right, as Christians, right, I think there's a way we can sort of program it and say, okay, well, we're taking you through marriage counseling, we're taking you through all of these programs, or whatever it is that we're taking them through to get them ready for marriage. We can also help them in this area, right? And so, okay, this is the thing that we can share. This is the thing from my experience.
Action. So, like Kiko was saying, friends that are not married, when they hear these horror stories, they are almost like, oh, we don't want to even be bothered with all this marriage, this thing. There are ways we can achieve whatever it is we want to achieve without having to sign in all the trouble. And to be honest, you can see things from their perspective. If all the stories that they are hearing are horror stories,
Yeah.
open your eyes, I want to get into a horror situation.
Yeah.
But the marriage institution, it does serve the function. It's supposed to be again a safety net whereby, okay, these are secure borders, and I think this has been an attempt to water down the sacredness of this institute. It's an attack on marriage. We've said this before, but if you think that the next great idea, the next villain of history will come from either a fractured family, or the next great idea, the next invention will come from a family unit that is wholesome, or things like that. You can see why this is like a long-term plan to derail humanity is what I think. It sounds like a conspiracy theory, and that's just my thinking of it. But the marriage does serve a function. It has to serve a function because it's the oldest institution from Adam and Eve up until now. So I think it's just convenient that all of a sudden this is starting to lose water. This is starting to,
Yeah. Okay. I can come from the, will I say, psychological perspective a little bit, and that is which people have said it before on this couch, right? When we ask the question of why did you get married? For companionship. You see what I'm saying? And I think that idea of the safety net, right? Because when it says there are friends that stick closer than brothers, your family is your family, there's fair weather, right? Some people can go when things are hard and that's it. But marriage, admittedly or supposedly, that's where you make the vow for better, for worse. Now, things can happen and people get divorced, but I think that it's been shown that the biggest fear that people have is dying alone, right? And I think that's what marriage kind of helps to calm that psychological tension of fear, right? That I'm going to have somebody by my side, you see, when I'm old, when things are, going, yes, I will have children, but the children can go. But if I have a spouse, that's the one person that I know, without saying, people don't say that, right? It's just from a psychological point of view that I know that this person will be with me till the end, which is why divorce can be so shattering, right? Because that's security that you had or you thought you had is no longer there, right? In terms of, so that, it's now something like, you're like, what in the world? Where's my world going, or where is it not going to go with this? Right. But as we say with many of the things here, we're talking about all these things within a platform of safety and security, right? Some of these things break apart when there's domestic violence, when people don't, recognize your boundaries as another adult human, and then bring in issues of domestic violence, right? So that will not be, under those circumstances, many of the things we're saying will not stand, right? So I think you need to, think about that in terms of where people say this marriage thing, why is it still holding over the years, right? And where people, no matter what, they still want to get married. I think, again, as humans, we sometimes don't talk about those deepest desires and needs of ours, but I really think that's one of the reasons that people want to be in that institution, or want to come into it for whatever reason. Same thing goes for parenting, right? They've shown, studies have shown that people who are parents are not as happy as people who are non-parents, like in terms of when you track happiness for what happiness is over the years. But no parents would tell you that they didn't want the child. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like who I am after a child is, I don't want to go back to who I was before the child, right? In that sense, there's a shift and a change that comes in your mind that you're thinking, I'm a different person now. I don't want that life before, now, that kind of thing. So in as much as it's almost like sorrow and pain, you are bearing them together. Your children can be so annoying, but then you love them so big, that tension, I think, just is what we humans do from the days of, Cain and Abel, as it were. So,
I think that we've kind of started to delve into the next set of questions concerning faith and religion. And the question that we have for you guys is, how or when has your faith played a role in your staying together? You know, and has there ever been a time where you questioned that faith?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that has been our foundation from day one. And I don't believe we've ever questioned that faith. I think, I don't know if I should say it's the other way around, like that faith has been our anchor.
Yeah.
In the sense that, you know, I feel like for us, everything stops and ends on our faith, right? It's like that was the anchor, right? And that's the thing that we're holding on to. And I feel like ever since we've gotten married, every step of the way where we've run into issues or challenges, we've always went back to that anchor. Now we go back there and say, okay, well, this is where we started from. We know from the start that this is what we're holding on to. This, you know, divorce won't be an option. Failure isn't an option because we know this is our anchor.
Yeah.
And this anchor, which is our faith in Christ, is not going to fail. Or, you know, Christ doesn't fail. So so I feel like at every turn, it's always been there for us, and even up to now, you know, in the sense of everything in our marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that I haven't given up on the faith, but there have been times when I kind of almost gave up on marriage, you know, and every time it's a thought that came, you know, that would come. And those thoughts have been strongest after I had a child. You know, as you can imagine, the stress of, you know, parenting and all of the changes and everything, you know, we can call it, you know, postpartum depression, if you will. And at every time where I felt like I couldn't do this anymore, you know, my faith kind of anchored me. You know, I just knew that it was, you know, that statement Jesus made, like, God, if this cup could pass over me, it was one of those, you know, it was one of those moments where we talked about seasons earlier. It's in those really dark, difficult times, how, you know, where you don't even know that anybody else gets it. You can't even begin to articulate. And there was something I heard the other day about how pain is good. It didn't make sense at the time, but now I'm learning that pain, these quote unquote difficult seasons, are such an integral part of my transformation, my evolution, my growth as a human. And if I wasn't scared, or if I didn't think that I wanted out, then something is wrong. Like, it's normal. It's normal for me to feel like I don't want to do this anymore. You know, so I definitely take, you know, comfort or found solace in that. But ultimately, you know, I know that I love this man. I know that I want to build a future with him. I know that, you know, he's one of the best decisions I ever made. And every time those thoughts come, I just need to be able to anchor my faith on the word of God, on the Holy Spirit, and just allow me. And the funny thing is, it's always a season. It's always like momentary. Because once I get into the zone and I pray or worship or even kind of talk through it or whatever that is, it shifts. You know, so
and I think to add to that is, like, I think before we got married, right? I think we were both kind of like two broken vessels, like two broken people who's coming into a marriage knowing full well that it is not going to be perfect. There were always the challenges, you know, but going back to that faith, right? And I think what has also helped us, right, is the fact that we waited 7 years, you know, to have our son, right? And personally, throughout that experience, right, there was no point or any point in time that I doubted the faith, right? You know, the child was gonna come. I don't know how it's gonna happen, but I know my faith in God would allow that to happen because I just believe, right? That's one of his promises. So I just felt like after we had our son as well, that just kind of propelled our faith, right? Like we just went into a zone where we just know for a fact that, like this faith that we're standing on, there's been a testimony to it, right? We've seen it. So now it's been tested and it's been true, right? So it's like now it's like there's no turning back. This is this is so I think that aspect, that faith is just it's been an anchor, and I believe it's going to continue to be an anchor.
Thank you for sharing, right? So I feel like this is also a word of encouragement for people who may be in the marriage and expecting a child, right? So we pray that your own desires get fulfilled in due season and due time. So which brings me to the point of community, right? Because I feel like we've known you people. We knew you when you were, waiting for this baby. We knew you when, the first was the word I'm looking for, right? Like there was a baby and then there was not, which is another conversation altogether, right? How you walk through that. And I saw how you supported, Kike through that, right? Because I feel like I've never had that experience, but I think sometimes going through those kinds of things together can either make or break you. And for both of you, I saw how it remade you, you know what I mean? Like, I'm so proud of you people. So that brings up the concept of community, right? So I remember how I met you. I just like, hey, you people look like Nigerian people. And that was it, and then we became family, I would say. So in terms of community, right? And I know community is important to Kike because she founded Passionista. You probably tell us a little bit about that. But my question for you is, has there been a time when your community crossed the line or let you down in relation to boundaries around your relationship, right? What did you do and how did you handle it, right? Because we are Nigerians, we are in people's businesses sometimes, right? That kind of thing. So, so how has there been a time when, community is meant to show us up and we see that happens all the time. But at the same time, has there been a time in relation to your marriage where somebody in your community did something that kind of crossed your boundaries, right? For each of you, how did you protect that relationship, if any?
If I'm being honest, I would say no. I don't know, like, I think that, we've kind of dealt with like some in-laws and outlaws situation. That would be like the max.
Yeah.
But it wasn't necessarily anything that had to do with our marriage.
Okay.
It was more of our individuality. So maybe relating to him as a person or relating to me as a person. But our union, not friends, not people in church, not family, like, which I think is a testimony.
Yeah.
Am I missing anything?
Yes, I would say though, like I wouldn't mention the space. Maybe if I say you remember it. I think she was part of the community. We're both part of the community.
I was more involved.
Yes. And then there was some conflict that came out of that community, right? And it got to a point where it was affecting our marriage, right?
Yeah.
And
so it wasn't like the community attacked our marriage.
Right.
If there was a situation with me, but then the impact of that, affected our marriage.
Exactly. So I think
that is true.
Right. And I think we've sort of made this agreement from the start, right? Like our marriage comes first, no matter what.
Yeah.
And as much as that community was as important to us at that moment in time, we just felt like it was time for us to just take a break from it, right? Like,
not take a break, remove ourselves.
Remove ourselves. Initially, remove ourselves, And I think at the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, your marriage should come first.
Yeah.
Right. And then everything else after. Right. Like whatever that community, whatever it is that it looks like or feels like, or what it does for you, I don't think it's what your marriage, right? So I think for us at that point, it was kind of like, what, let us withdraw ourselves from this and then let us go back and just figure things out and just move from there. Decision can be maybe we want to go back or we just want to go somewhere else.
The reason I'm shaking my head is because that situation in some other case would have ended other people's marriages.
Wow.
And Femi had every reason to be upset because you know me. I mean, I'm not a troublemaker. I didn't make trouble, but like it could have been a situation that was easily avoided if I didn't involve myself. But you know me, I'm a people's person. I want to be embedded in the community, be out there and whatnot. And that kind of like became a whole situation. And as hurt as I was, because the way it impacted my marriage was that I was so sad and depressed and hurt. And I carried that pain into our marriage. And it's like, I'm not the one that offended you. Like, why do I have to deal with this version of you? Like, you need to put that somewhere else and deal with it. Like, don't bring that into this place. But now that I'm thinking about it, this man gave me permission to acknowledge my pain. As hurt as I was, I found it difficult to still remove myself. And I remember asking him, like, is it okay? Like, I still don't want to let go of this pain. Like, I don't want to let go of this space that keeps hurting me. That's some PTSD stuff right there. But like,
that's probably why you couldn't remember it, right?
I remember getting his validation.
Yeah.
Like he didn't have to, like he could have like yelled at me and like doubled down on like, you see yourself, you blamed me and you keep doing all of these things. I know that you want to be involved in people, but like, no. And I remember seeking his validation. Is it okay? Like, can I actually remove myself? And he said, yes, and I'm just grateful for that.
Yeah. And that validation comes from a place of recognizing your strength, right? For example, she mentioned earlier that, when we started this call, right? One of the things you mentioned is you're an extrovert and I'm an introvert, right? And one of the strengths that I recognize is have value in creating or forming relationships. I think it's one of the gifts. She just knows how to connect with people.
Yeah.
And during those issues that we had, right, I felt like she was coming from a place where she was intentionally trying to connect
to maintain and hold on to
the relationship. But those things just, so for me, I recognize our intentions, and I felt like, she's coming from a place that's gracious and open, being open. So I felt like, there's no reason for me to make her feel bad or because the truth of the matter is most of our relationships, the value relationships that we have, she's been the one that usually formed those relationships, right? And I tend to
I've ended this on a high note, right? In terms of being able to draw a boundary, recognizing the other person's strength, being there for, the other party, right? In the midst of what you call existential crisis, but validating their strength.
Right.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I don't think that there's anything we can, add or subtract. Okay.
So, your questions for us.
You go. You go.
Go ahead.
We're on the hot seat now.
I know. So, wait, did you have any questions? You had a question.
Go ahead, babe.
I don't have any question right now.
Okay. Let's take you.
All right. I would say, for you guys, since you've started hosting the Great Couch conversations, how has it helped, shaped, and just affected your I don't know if I should say thinking or experience,
About life, about people.
Yeah, about
Okay.
about experiences in terms of talking to people, interviewing people, and things of that nature.
What did you want to go first?
I do. Not that I do, but did you hear me call you okay? You want to go? So for people who know, even though we are calling him Stanley at home, his name is okay to me. So so I think one thing is that it's helped us grow tremendously, right? Together in terms of conversations, because we are thinking, what should we bring to the couch, right? Because I feel like our life is full of stories, and stories are, to me, the lifeblood of relationships, right? So there are times when we're having a conversation and we're thinking, this should be on the couch, because we're having this, deep conversations, but we're like, well, there's no camera following us around like reality TV. But I think for one thing, it's helped us a lot in terms of just growing, right? Because it's like almost like you can't teach people what you don't know, right? So the idea is, how do we get to know better? And also, this idea of, hey, you cannot come out and be saying everything is okay if you haven't fixed your own mess, so to speak, that kind of thing. So it makes you almost like more responsible about the relationship, I would say.
For me, I think it makes you take a second look where something will have happened and it doesn't register on the scale. Maybe I should find an example, but say somebody says something to me that normally I wouldn't notice in passing. Something as that, I will do this, or I should do this. Those type of little things. Imagine that in a marriage, I'm a little more observant, I should say. Part of it was, this might be a good topic for the couch content, because it's real life. We're trying to bring real life on here, what are the challenges that people are really having. So it makes you kind of listen with like a second ear, and something else that has been a blessing to me is that a lot of people that we've brought to the couch, the chemistry changes, so to speak. At first, you start out, you're awkward, you're a little this, and then you see the people's passion, their hearts come out for each other, for the topic at hand. We had an elderly couple here that said that when we were asking the question, it made them think more about their own marriage, and these guys have been married for a while, so it's like, oh wow, so it was like, okay, some purpose here, some relevance here. Plan to have a panel on sex talk, different stages. So we have the late, the mid, and the early.
So where do we fall?
You guys, well, yes, you guys were early. Don't worry about it.
Early, 0 to 10.
So 0 to 10 is early. 10 to 20 is mid. Yeah. And then 20 and above is
don't say
season.
I feel like that 0 to 10 is such a huge. That 0 to 10 is to be broken.
Everybody says that, but I don't know when we were at a redeemed. You might not remember. We were at a redeemed service. I was one of the service, and the preacher there, I can remember saying that, and they hadn't been married for very long, right? The guy said something was that until you be married after you're married for 10 years, that's when you just started. And I'm like, that because that's when the secrets will start coming out after 10 years. I said,
What happened was the couple were celebrating their 10th anniversary and they came off for 10 years. And the guy said, we are just starting. Like your marriage is just starting. And all of us were like, hello. And then when we even married them, we're not married, we're thinking 10 years.
Maybe he's right.
Actually,
yeah.
It all depends. Like some people before they get married, they're already pregnant. I think our delay, I mean, if I'm being honest, was definitely a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
Because I really love and enjoyed, all of the times that my husband and I, shared together while we were waiting. And I'm grateful to God for the grace and the strength He gave us to go through our waiting season without, we were different, sometimes some people might even judge me as like, does she even want kids? Because I wasn't stressed, I wasn't bothered. I was living my best life, enrolled in school. I was looking hot, going to the gym, like doing all the things that I needed to do. And that helped create like a deeper bond between us. We got to know each other better. We traveled a little bit and just, did things like we were dating. It was really, really, I know it sounds silly for somebody who, tried to conceive for, how many years, had surgeries and whatnot. But in retrospect, I am grateful for that time that we had together because it just allowed us to further solidify our bond. I can't imagine going through this experience when we just got married. I don't know that I will still be here. I don't know that I will still be this person. No, no.
You're
So-
still.
That's what we have for you for this week. From our family on the Great Couch to your family. Be blessed. And until next week, we'll see you guys again soon.
Yeah.